Whose data is it when you do something and it gets recorded? Is it yours? What's just happened in the New Zealand government? My data is my data, isn't it? Isn't it? If I've created it, isn't it mine? I'm sure it is. No, it's not. There's so many things that is going on, and information technology is moving so fast. We've had a data breach in New Zealand. We create data every day in everything that we do, everything we buy, places that we go. Whose data is that? What can we do about it? And what's coming? How do you think it's going to look? To find out more, I sit down and have a cafe session with Ross Hewson. Ross Hewson, you may know him if you worked in the banking industry. He was the CIO for Westpac for many years. After that, he was the CIO of IRD. He's been around a while. He's seen a few things and has started to create a business where he's seen a big gap. Personal information. Ross Hewson joins us for another cafe session. What's your feeling in regards to the current situation of current management in businesses if they're seeking more and more consultants' work?
Well, it depends on the businesses, I suppose, but my experience is that if organisations don't leverage off the skills and experience of other people, they're missing out quite often. To me, you can't hire specialists in every area. And if you're going to if you need someone to help you in an area, are you going to go out and hire a person to do that? Or why not get a consultant to do that for a week or a month or whatever period of time, get those skills in that you need, and then, move on, and you haven't got any ongoing expense. So, fundamentally, that's what it's about. It's horses for courses. Absolutely, I wouldn't hire a consultant, especially some of these consultants I see that are in a business for, 6 months, a year or more, unless there's a particular need for that. But, a specialist coming in to help, to me, is a really valid way to approach things. Yeah, get the skills you need to move forward. And look, I think it's always good to have a different perspective from external people as well. It can challenge your thinking, and certainly today, a lot of organisations need to be challenged with their thinking.
Things are moving really fast, really fast. What can you see as being some of the big issues that business will face now and into the future?
Yeah, well, look, the area that I'm focused on is this management of personal information, and just over this weekend we've seen another data breach by government. Someone who unwittingly enabled people to access other people's personal information through their website. No one intended to do this, but, those several hundred people who've had their driver's licences or passports exposed through the Culture and Heritage website will be very, very disappointed in that, and there's certainly a focus around the world that the personal information of people is actually valuable, and if you don't treat it correctly, it will impact your business and impact your customers. We've heard the Privacy Commissioner come out very strongly today saying, hey, that's just unacceptable. Yeah. Those people need to be apologised to and compensated for. It's just that is a key trend in this world today of people and organisations needing to treat personal information in more secure and private ways.
This isn't new, the way that we're supposed to protect people's information.
No, and you read the paper this morning and it's basically, it was a coding error, which is just rubbish. Someone should have tested it.
Yes.
People should know about this. If they're dealing with, fine, there's some levels of personal information, but when you're dealing with sensitive identity information, it needs to be protected. And I think, it's interesting, Gartner predicted many years ago that a lot of organisations will actually move away from the responsibility of managing personal information and look to third parties to do that for them, which is an interesting proposition.
Which goes back to the previous conversation in and around consultants.
Yep.
Get the people that do this for a living, live it and breathe it, and give it to them to handle it.
Yeah, and obviously someone like Culture and Heritage, not picking on them, but they might have an IT team that has extensive experience in this. But it seemed like they were using an outside partner. But look, people need to be conscious of it and really be aware that it's an issue. For that chief executive to be on the front page of the paper this morning having to explain this issue, it is a real, and no one wants to be on the front page of the paper for the wrong reasons.
No, so that security team looking after it, the IT team would have been thinking, we're okay, we're fine. So possibly there could be some big untruths that are going around and people are thinking that they're okay.
Well, I suppose I can only imagine in that case that they assumed that they'd outsourced that to someone who knew what they were doing. In outsourcing your problem, you still own the website.
Right.
So you still need to have some capability in-house to understand what you're doing and to check the people that you've outsourced those things to. So don't just think that because you've outsourced it, it's all right. It's your brand that's going to be impacted. So you need to have some understanding and some ability to know what's going on and get the checks and balances in place to protect yourself.
How do you make the checks?
Yeah, well, I suppose you could always bring a consultant in. But it's... you should have internal processes that something like privacy security should be on every checklist for every activity, every time you're collecting money. And look, if you don't know yourselves how to do it, then you really need some expert to come in and do it. And it is a growth area, especially in the Wellington, New Zealand market, or global market, is for these security and privacy experts, because it is such a specialist topic.
We've all got data being created every day. Every time we do something, it's being recorded, it's being put into some database somewhere. Everyone's talking about their data being their own. In the music industry, it's like an artist going in, they create a song, and it's their song, and then they have a system where it gets copyrighted, and they get paid anytime someone anytime someone plays that song. Is there some way that we can start using that system that's already in place with copyright to say, if you use my data, I get paid on it?
Well, look, that's a very topical question, Sandy. Thank you for that. And look, one of the reasons why I set up Personal Information Management Limited was to look for different ways to manage personal information. And look, again, very topical, the likes of Google and Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. I mean, people have provided those organisations so much personal information that those organisations say, and I don't believe it's totally true, but they can profile you, and that to a certain extent they can really understand you, and some people say more than you understand yourself. And hence they're focused on targeting their advertising to you, and not just advertising, influencing the way you act and behave. In the case of Cambridge Analytica, that was, potentially what won the election for Trump and what decided the Brexit outcome. And that was based on those organisations saying, thank you for your personal data, we'll now use it for our own purposes. And my whole approach is, actually, that's my data. I'm giving you access to that data for the purposes of helping you manage your business or transact with you. But I absolutely agree, there's a real pushback now to people saying it's actually my data and I should have more rights around it. And we're seeing this in parts of the world where, especially in Europe, they are legislating to say, you have the right to be forgotten. If you enter information into a data source and you don't want it to be there, then it should be able to be removed. Look, as to whether you could actually copyright it and claim it, it is your data anyway, so the real value is offering it to people in return for funds. And I think the model is usually you give away your data because these services are free. You think, well, I'll give them some information, and the saying is, obviously, if it's free, you are the product. They're targeting their activity towards you, and we don't get any gain from that. In fact, it really impacts our lives. So I think it is absolutely new models are being explored, new ways of managing that data. I think simple things like terms and conditions on websites are just ridiculous. No one reads them.
Too long.
And people just click the button and away they go. And
that's the wrong thing to do. But we want the convenience, we want the service. So it's the reason why we just scroll past and just hit agree, because we want that service.
That's right.
We want that convenience.
Yep. And I think I remember one example. Someone told me they actually wrote into the terms and conditions that by accepting these terms and conditions, you give away the right to your firstborn. And people said, yep, they ticked it. And of course, if they'd wanted to, they could have come back and said, oh, well, hand over your baby. Now, look, people were taking the proverbial there, but people just, they really need to think about this, and there needs to be a change in the way that we deal with it, because it is a real, it's impacting our privacy, our own lives.
Yeah, and with that too, with these services that we're all wanting to get, the convenience that we're wanting to have, does it show that there is a problem with competition in that market for those conveniences?
Yeah, look, I just think, again, coming back to your question about the real truth, people just think, oh, well, I can set up a website and all that information comes into my website and it's my data as an organisation. To me, that's a false truth. That is
Right.
something people should realise. It's not actually their data. I mean, there's areas of grey. I mean, in the medical world, if you give go to your doctor and talk to your doctor, and they add information and diagnosis or prognosis or whatever to that data, that gets grey, because maybe that's the doctor's version of your information. But generally, it's pretty clear cut. Especially with your name, your address, your date of birth. Those are attributes for you, and you need to have some control over where they are. And I think there definitely will and are emerging new models that will change the way we deal with things, like people outsourcing the responsibility for managing that data going forward.
So you're saying these emerging models, blockchain is something that people have been talking about for years, saying that it's not the silver bullet, but it's another platform that people are able to use to say, if this is your data, you can put it into a system that says whenever someone cites it and wants to use it, they have to give permission.
Look, there's some absolute benefits to blockchain, but I don't think that's going to be the total answer, as you say.
I think it's having a look at the technology of blockchain. I think the blockchain system itself will change. It's not going to be called blockchain. There'll be derivatives of that type of technology that will turn into another platform that people go, this looks good.
Yeah.
Is that what we're seeing now with these models that you're talking about?
Yeah, look, and there's a lot of different players around the world pushing back on this and wanting more control of their data, and in fact their identity is the other word which I haven't mentioned. This whole movement towards self-sovereign identity. The government doesn't really own my identity, I do, especially in this world where more and more country borders are blurred by digital organisations. You're a citizen of the world. You need to claim your own identity and have sovereignty over your own identity. And there are a lot of emerging concepts and tools coming out in that space, which I think will help as well.
So the nirvana that I'm thinking is that I will have the rights to my data, and I can access it whenever I want to using some biometric tools. So I don't need to go into a bank and then show a piece of plastic that magnetically has a code that says it's me. I just walk in and they say it's me, and the cameras say it's me, and then I walk up and then I might use my thumbprint, or I might use my vocal patterns to authenticate who I am. Is this something that you see, which has been very futuristic and something that we've seen in the movies? Will life imitate art?
Oh, look, absolutely, that's coming. I mean, we do a lot of work around identity. We've got about 50 organisations using our identity services now. ASB Bank uses our technology to onboard their customers biometrically.
Wow.
So that they don't even have to go into a branch to join a bank. So there are solutions like that around now that we're helping, and we've got relationships with voice organisations, and we're building on that now. So look, those are things that are coming, and absolutely, I'm totally in line with you. The world will change, and voice, iris, whatever it is, there's strengths and weaknesses on each of them, but that's the way it's going. And and removing the need for passwords and for
yes.
all of these things, because you can just, you're identified as you, and therefore you get access to the things you're allowed to.
Yeah, because it shouldn't be a quiz session every time you log into something.
It's just, that is, again, if you're designing a new system out there, you don't have to design it with 50 questions and, a long password, and, there are ways around that these days that are emerging, still new, but will replace the current way we do things.
So how do we find out more about what you're up to?
Happy to talk to anyone at any stage. I'm focused on the area of digital identity through a service called Green ID that we resell in New Zealand. Happy to talk to anyone about that. We're doing a lot of work around data quality and cleansing of personal data through another organisation we represent as well. They're both organised by a UK listed company called GBG. So it's becoming we're part of a global network in this space now. But the interesting one that we are doing now, that if people would like to talk about, we've actually been working with the Department of Internal Affairs around a death notification service. And it's interesting to think about what happens to your personal information after you die. And we've launched a service now that will help people close out the relationships of that deceased person when they die. It's already up and running with Inland Revenue and Westpac and DIA, and we're now promoting that to the market with the aim that when you are dealing with an estate, you can come to our website, My Trove, and through one form close down all those relationships that deceased person had with all those organisations. And so that's an exciting activity that we're underway with, and again, a different way of managing personal information at the end of life, which is where we're focused at the moment.
Brilliant. Ross Hewson, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, Sandy. Good to talk to you.